All right, today we are diving into one of the most incredible moments in the entire New Testament, the Transfiguration, right from Matthew chapter 17. We're going to climb a mountain to witness a moment where the veil between heaven and earth is, well, it's pulled back for just a second.
I mean, really think about that. What would you do? Imagine being on some remote mountaintop, and suddenly the reality you've always known just peels away, revealing this breathtaking glimpse of divine glory. That's exactly what we're talking about today.
So let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in verse 1. It's only been 6 days since Peter made that huge declaration that Jesus is the Christ. And Jesus takes his inner circle, Peter, James, and John, and leads them up a high mountain, away from everybody else, for something they could never have prepared for.
What happens next is just pure divine revelation. It's truly a mountain of glory.
Okay, so verse 2 tries to describe this stunning transformation. Jesus' appearance completely changes right in front of them. His face shines with the same intensity as the sun, and his clothes become this brilliant, pure white, a kind of light that no earthly laundry process could ever create. This wasn't just a glow. This was a revelation of who he really is, his true divine nature. The key word here is transfigured. Now, in the original Greek, the word is metamorpho. You might recognize the root for our word metamorphosis. It means a complete change in form or nature. So this wasn't a costume change. It was Jesus allowing his inner celestial glory to become visible. And what's also fascinating is that some sources suggest that Peter, James, and John were also changed in that moment, just so they could physically withstand being in such a powerful divine presence.
And as if seeing Jesus in his full glory wasn't enough, the vision suddenly expands. Two absolute giants from Scripture appear, the law and the prophets.
Verse 3 tells us that all of a sudden, there they are. Moses, the great lawgiver himself, and Elijah, who's called Elias in the Greek, the man who basically represented all the prophets. And they aren't just standing there posing for a picture. They are actively talking with Jesus. So why these two guys? Well, this was incredibly significant. Moses represented the law, and Elijah, the prophets. These were the two pillars of the Old Testament. Their presence was a powerful witness that Jesus was the fulfillment of everything the Scriptures had been pointing to for centuries. But it was even more than symbolic. They came to confer sacred priesthood authority, or keys, to the apostles. And Luke's account adds another layer. They were speaking with Jesus about his coming suffering in Jerusalem, literally strengthening him for the atonement. Now, in verse 4, we get a very, very human reaction from Peter. He is so completely overwhelmed by the glory of this moment that he just blurts out, "Lord, it is good for us to be here." And then he suggests building 3 shelters or tabernacles. He's basically trying to make this heavenly moment permanent, to just hold on to it forever. You can't blame him. But Peter barely gets the words out of his mouth before this whole event reaches its absolute climax. A voice from heaven.
According to verse 5, a bright cloud overshadows them, and a voice, the voice of God the Father, booms from that cloud with this unmistakable command. I mean, this is the ultimate testimony. And in that moment, the disciples just fall on their faces, completely and totally terrified by what they've just heard and seen.
And then we see Jesus' immediate response in verses 7 and 8. He doesn't just leave them there in their fear. He goes to them, he touches them, and he offers that perfect comfort. Arise and be not afraid. And just like that, when they finally look up, the vision is over. Moses and Elijah are gone, the cloud is gone, they're alone on the mountain with only Jesus.
So as they're coming down from this mountain of glory, you can imagine the disciples are trying to process everything they just saw. And this incredible experience naturally led to a pretty big question.
In verse 9, Jesus gives them a very strict command. Don't tell anyone what you just saw, not until after the resurrection. This instruction, plus the fact they just saw the prophet Elijah in person, starts to spark some confusion about a prophecy they all knew very well. So in verse 10, they just ask him. And it's a perfectly logical question, right? They're basically saying, hey, the religious leaders have always taught that Elijah is supposed to come before the Messiah to get everything ready. We just saw him up there, but you're already here, so how does this all work? And Jesus' answer is fascinating because it reveals this beautiful complexity in how prophecy can be fulfilled. He shows them that there were really 2 parts to this puzzle. First, in verse 11, Jesus confirms their understanding. He says, "You're right, the prophecy is true." He says, yes, Elijah will come and restore all things, affirming this great future mission of restoration that was always part of God's plan. But then comes the twist. In verses 12 and 13, Jesus says that in another sense, an Elias figure has already come, but the people completely missed it. They didn't recognize him. And in that moment, it clicks for the disciples. He's talking about John the Baptist. Now, if you look at the other scriptures, it all becomes much clearer. An angel told John's father that John would come in the spirit and power of Elias, meaning he'd have a similar preparatory mission. And John himself, when people asked him straight up, "Are you Elijah?" he said, "No, I am not." So Jesus is explaining that there are two fulfillments. John the Baptist fulfilled the role of a forerunner, but Elijah the prophet himself would still come to perform his own unique mission. So you see, it's two separate fulfillments. John the Baptist was the forerunner. He came in the spirit and power of Elias to prepare the way for Christ's first coming. But Elijah the prophet is the restorer. He appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration to deliver priesthood keys that are essential for preparing the entire world for the second coming. Two different figures, two vital missions, all wrapped up in one profound prophecy.
And that really leaves us with the ultimate meaning of what happened that day. The Transfiguration wasn't just some incredible vision to strengthen three apostles. The appearance of Elijah was what you might call the divine capstone of restoration. It was about bringing back a sealing power that connects families together, across all generations. That glimpse of glory on the mountain was a promise, and Elijah's mission provides the way for that glory to unite the entire human family for eternity.